All right, so Ghana marked its 59th Independence Day celebration on the 6th of March. And it was a very colorful event, lots to laugh about and cheer on. Now, prior to that, we also listened to the president deliver his State of the Nation's address. A lot of issues have come up after that. Today, we have the President of the Republic, Mr. John Dramani Mahama, join us to talk more about it and also what the John Mahama 2016 campaign would look like. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for joining us.
Thank you, Bridget.
Right. At the Black Star Square, you had the best seat, so you could see everything that was going on. Can you just tell me how you think the Independence Day celebration went?
I think that it was very well organized. I want to commend the National Celebration Planning Committee for choreographing the events very well. And I'm sure that Ghanaians watched it live and everybody was quite proud of, what they saw. Indeed, I got a call from President Kenyatta after he got back home, and he expressed, how much he enjoyed, the parade, and he asked me to extend his commendations to our men in uniform and to the school children, for the smart out 10. And he particularly liked the Gold Coast Police.
I was coming to that. Gold Coast Police, you were captured on camera, laughing. I was trying to prevent yourself from laughing too much. And unfortunately, one of them passed on, Bobo Kala. And you tweeted a while ago that he brought laughter, joy to so many others, and to you and Lordina Mahama. How well did you know him, and what did he mean to you?
I was the reviewing officer, and so I'm supposed to stand to take the salute, and it's a formal duty. And so when they started and I noticed who were involved in it, it was funny. I'm sure everybody laughed, and so I was trying to avoid laughing, but
sure.
There are sometimes that you just have to give in to your natural instincts. Bobo Kala was a friend. Bob was a friend. He was a regular visitor to my house. And my family knew him, my children all know him. And I'm sad that this happened. On Thursday, after the parade, they all came home to come and interact with us. And so all those who had taken part in the Gold Coast Police came. And Bob was amongst them. We took a picture. It was put on the social media. I'm sure many people saw it. But that day I noticed he was very quiet. And when all the rest were having fun, he was sitting very quietly. So I could tell he wasn't well. And so I asked him, and he said, yeah, he had not been feeling well for some time. And so on Tuesday, we arranged for him to go see the doctor. That's the Tuesday after the independence. And he did. And so they took him through many extensive tests, and I think he was about to start his treatment regime, but they had asked him to rest. I don't know what took him to Koforidua, but unfortunately, I hear he collapsed on stage and, passed away. And so I wish on behalf of all Ghanaians to express our condolences to his family.
All right, then let's move away from that to the Independence Day celebration. When Uhuru Kenyatta, was it just the extension, or because there were other issues that have come up after the Independence Day celebration? Did the President of Kenya notice those errors? And when you called him, did you talk about that?
We actually went through the brochure, and he didn't show that he noticed that he was described as the President of Ghana. But I'm sure in communications, you people call it the printer's devil. It's unfortunate. I think those mistakes are avoidable. And the Chief of Staff is working on it to make sure that that doesn't happen again. It was a beautiful celebration. I don't think it should have been marred by something as simple as, the printer's devil in a brochure. But we went through it. He was particularly intrigued by the picture of Nkrumah and his family. And so he asked that I have ISD make a framed, picture of it and send it to him. And so that's what we were discussing in the brochure, the history of his father and all that. But he liked it. He was happy about it. Okay,
but if it was so simple, like you said, the errors.
Well, I don't say it was simple. I say it was avoidable.
It was avoidable.
It shouldn't happen.
Yes, if it's avoidable, why did we have to fire the acting director of the Information Services Department? Why did we also have to move the Flagstaff House Communications Bureau to the Ministry of Communication?
Chief of Staff is dealing with that, and I think that the Chief of Staff has received reports on what happened, and so he's taking remedial action to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think that those are administrative measures that are within his ambit to take. But Ghanaians want to be sure that when we have such an impressive ceremony, it's not marred by things like mistakes in a brochure. I think that we can do it well. I've been Minister of Communications before. ISD was under my purview. And that's an organization that was set up by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And they've done some quite marvelous work. And so I think that we must look at the whole, setup. What happens is the National Celebrations Planning Committee oversees the whole celebration and is made up of institutional representatives. And so ISD, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defense, everybody is a part of it. And so we must look at that structure and make sure that we cover every hole and that we don't suffer any such embarrassment in the future.
No, but why did the acting director take the fall? Why was he? He
said he saw the mistake in the morning and he had to take a decision whether to distribute it or not to distribute it. I would have thought that the chairman of the Celebrations Planning Committee should have been consulted, whether to distribute or not to distribute. And so, and he wrote and said he takes responsibility for what happened. But I said it's within the purview of the Chief of Staff to deal with and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Okay, all right then. Also, on that same day, you delivered a speech. I mean, you talked about how individuals, have brought their own talent, individual quality, and yet have earned a bit of national praise. But that was the theme that was running through everything that you said, really calling on people, to be very nationalistic in what they do and the like. But at the end of it, it was still described as empty. People wanted to hear more. Could you have done anything more than?
Well, I think they don't understand the purpose of the independence speech. We have what we call commemorative speeches. Commemorative speeches mark days like Independence Day, where you remember the heroes, of your nation. And commemorative speeches are not heavy on policy. Policy is dealt with in State of the Nation addresses. In commemorative speeches, you're rallying your nation, you're building up the sense of patriotism, you're holding up heroes of the nation so that people can emulate them. I don't know, we're in an election year, so if somebody said it was empty, maybe they might have their motive for saying that. But I've delivered 3 similar speeches from 2013 till date. It was never described as empty, and it's only when we have an election coming up, it says the speech was empty. A speech that talked about Jomo Kenyatta and his role in Kenyan independence, a speech that talks about Amilcar Cabral, the hero of Guinea-Bissau's independence, a speech that talks about Kwame Nkrumah and the Big Six, J.B. Danquah and all of them, can be described as empty. Then I don't know what speech was being expected. It's a commemorative speech. It doesn't carry too much policy. It just rallies people's patriotic instincts. Yeah.
But maybe people wanted to hear a bit about the youth. Well, you mentioned,
I mentioned the youth and the kind of future we want to create for them and all that, yeah. So that's what it was. And normally those speeches are very short. You can't put too much in them because it's a highlight of a long ceremony. I mean, children have been standing in the sun, security services. So you don't want to come and read a 2-hour-long speech or a 1-hour-long speech, yeah. So you can't put everything in it, yeah. Okay. But I do think that Ghanaians appreciated the speech.
Okay. You and your wife particularly have done well in terms of promoting Made in Ghana. But Made in Ghana goes beyond just wearing of clothes. I mean, the Ghanaian needs to feel that pride and the confidence, in whether wearing Made in Ghana clothing or whether using Made in Ghana furniture and the like. But they don't seem to have faith in it. Do you think you have failed in terms of your Made in Ghana drive, your Made in Ghana campaign?
Well, I'm sure that this beautiful dress you're wearing is made in Ghana.
Absolutely. Yeah? You're very observant, yes.
And I think that I see more people, more of our women and more people wear Made in Ghana clothes, throughout the week. Before, it was a campaign that was only for Friday. But today, in the course of the whole week, you find people wearing Made in Ghana clothes. But yes, it's true, like you said, Made in Ghana goes beyond just clothing. It goes to the products that we use every day. It goes to making choices about whether we buy Ghanaian goods or foreign goods. And you know that for quite a long time, we have had a very import-dependent economy. And so even though we're producing comparatively quality goods here, we have had a certain perception that foreign goods are always better than ours. And that is a perception that Made in Ghana wants to reverse. And so I do think that it has made an impact. People are more conscious now in their consumption to ensure that, we're giving advantage to our own producers. And just the clothes they wear is just one example of it. But it even goes beyond just consumption. It goes into being self-reliant in a lot of things. And that is why the other aspect of it is substituting commodities on which we have a huge import bill with producing those commodities locally. And so if we set up the Kumasi Shoe Factory to produce shoes for the security services and for school children, that is to reduce our import bill in importing shoes from China and other places like that. If we're setting up the Commander Sugar Factory to produce half of the sugar that we eat in Ghana, so that we can reduce our sugar import bill of $300 million per year by $150 million. That is part of the campaign of being more self-reliant and relying on Ghanaian-made products. If we give assistance to pharmaceutical companies to produce antiretrovirals, antibiotics, analgesics, all kinds of cough syrups locally, it is to prevent us importing more of those products. Okay. And so it's a more comprehensive campaign than just the clothes we wear. And government is not paying lip service to it. Government is actually, doing the things that would help us to be able to achieve that. If we're growing more rice, currently we're growing 60% of the rice we consume. That is part of, being the self-reliance campaign. And okay. There are many more examples that I can showcase. Savannah Cement Company produces local cement using our own clinker and limestone.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll come to you. You said a number of things. Actually, you said a number of things last year. I'll come to that. But Dr. Parker Sindem said this, that I want government to use its purchasing power to support our own. President John Dramani Mahama should make a rule that nobody should buy anything outside of Ghana when we produce that thing in Ghana. And I would organize a press conference to support him. What's the difficulty with that?
Fantastic. We need to amend the Procurement Act to be able to do that. What happens is the Procurement Act says that we should go through a certain procedure to procure goods and services for government. And it does not state clearly that for goods that we produce locally, we should buy those instead of importing or buying imported goods. Now, what it says is it gives made in Ghana goods a preference band. I've forgotten what the percentage is. I think 12% or 15%. And so if you are buying an item, let's say this pen, and there's a pen that is produced in Ghana, and then somebody else is trying to supply you that pen produced in China. The made in Ghana pen, if its price exceeds up to 12 to 15% the price of the competitive good, then you must take the made in Ghana good. That is the provision that has been made for made in Ghana in the Procurement Act. And so if we want a blanket statement, and that has been discussed over time, that for goods that are produced in Ghana, whether their prices are 50% more expensive, you understand, then they must be procured in Ghana. But if you did that, then it means that your budget cost might go up, because if the Ghanaian product is far more expensive than the foreign product, then it means you must be prepared to buy it, and that's going to come out of the consolidated fund. So without doing that blanket rule, but still making Ghanaian products more competitive, you give them a certain percentage. I think that percentage should even be increased to about 20%, so that if even a Ghanaian product is 20% more expensive than a foreign product, because its manufacturer is creating jobs in our economy, we should go for the Ghanaian product.
You're the President of the Republic. You can make that.
It has to go to Parliament. I don't make the laws. The laws are made in Parliament. We've asked that an amendment of the Procurement Act be done. The Procurement Act was passed in President Kufuor's time. It's been operating for some time. We've noticed some loopholes in it. And so there's work ongoing. The Public Procurement Authority and the other stakeholders are going through it to make the necessary amendments. And once they've done that, it goes to Parliament. And when Parliament approves it, we start to implement, yeah.
All right. You wrote this. My commitment to Ghanaian businesses is unquestionable. Let's patronize made in Ghana goods in order to sustain our economy. May 1, 2015. May 4, 2015 is that my commitment to Ghanaian businesses is unquestionable. And then, as an advocate of made in Ghana goods, supporting local businesses has always been my top priority. And these were some of the responses you got to that. Now, Parliament bought chairs and tables from China, and you preached to the ordinary Ghanaian to buy made in Ghana. Please lead by example. And that's from Debian. How did Parliament purchase Chinese furniture? It's like Ghanaians want to support their own, but they see a certain betrayal, which obviously pushes them back. So how do you get over that? How do we get over that?
I think that we must understand the workings of government. And once we understand that, then you know where these questions should be directed to. We have
But
separation.
did you feel betrayed?
We have separation of powers. And as much as possible, as head of the executive, we are pushing for people to use more made in Ghana. Procurement in Parliament and the judiciary does not come under the ambit of the president. Indeed, I'm not supposed to interfere in those other arms of government. I would believe that we could find comparable furniture here. I already understand the basis on which those procurements were made, but I will continue to advocate. And I think that Parliament and the judiciary and all the other arms of government should make a conscious effort to ensure that for the things that we can produce, we produce them locally. When I go to Parliament, the seat that I sit on was carved by a local Ghanaian carver, Antobam, something Antobam. The vice president's seat was carved by a local Ghanaian, you know. And so when the executive comes into Parliament, we sit in seats that were carved by Ghanaians. Our MPs too can sit on seats that were made by Ghanaians. And so it's a lesson we should take forward. And,
I wanted a response to that. Did you feel betrayed? Because this actually happened a few days after you had actually gone to Parliament and spoken to them and championed and what you wore, everybody was talking about it, and you promoted the shoe you even wore and the like. And then you saw that.
I'll not use the word betrayal. I just
but
think that.
How did you feel?
I just think that it is a consciousness we must all develop. And Ghanaians felt disappointed that we didn't use our own furniture instead of importing furniture. But it's a consciousness that takes time to develop. And as we continue the campaign, I'm sure people will begin to develop that consciousness and look out deliberately, you know, for goods that we have a comparative advantage to produce.
Okay. What deliberate policies have you made to ensuring that we buy from local?
Like I said, it must be contained in the Procurement Act. And so once we do the amendment to the Procurement Act, that will be a deliberate policy to give advantage to Ghanaian businesses. Okay. But let me say that I have given specific directives which are beginning to yield results. Okay. For instance, I said that for all road and building construction that is financed from Government of Ghana funds, you know, the majority of those projects should go to Ghanaians. And I'm happy that today 95% of contractors working in the road construction sector are Ghanaians. It wasn't so a few years ago. We had a lot of, you know, Asian companies and other companies, you know, from all over the world, you know, competing with our Ghanaian contractors. Today, our Ghanaian contractors are doing well. They are improving their equipment stock. They are doing projects that formerly people thought only foreigners could do. All this asphalt work that is going on, a lot of Ghanaian companies are the ones doing it. If you take a few years back, there were only 6 companies that had asphalt plants in Ghana, and all the 6 companies were foreign owned. Today, 22 companies have asphalt plants. And of the 22, if you take aside the 6, the rest are all Ghanaian companies. Okay. And so we're giving effect to the things that we say. And that is why evidence-based learning is important, you know, to be able to showcase exactly how that is helping to transform things. Otherwise, these are things that people take for granted, okay, and then don't realize that there's something going on. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned evidence-based, because I'm going to evidence-based. That's the State of the Nation's address, and you adopted an evidence-based approach. You know, you were talking, you mentioned a name, and the whole, you know, our eyes will move to, if it's Aisha too that you mentioned, we'll have to look for Aisha too, Zainabu, and then we'll be looking for Mr. President. Was all that necessary? Did we have to bring all those people to there? It was. For what? To what end? Is it that people don't believe you? No. People take things for granted. I mean, you build a new hospital, so until and I'm a communications person, until you let people see by evidence how it has changed their lives, often they'll take it for granted. And so the lady I brought from Nkrankwanta, her first child was born in the Doma hospital. And so she had to take transport to Doma. She had to pay for her relatives to come and stay with her in Doma to be able to have her baby. The next baby was born with a polyclinic in her own backyard. And so she literally walked to the polyclinic, had her baby. These are things that, you know, until you tell the story, people will take for granted. I mean, people walk long distances to fetch water, and government puts a water supply project in the town, and so they're able to get clean drinking water. They're no longer reporting the local hospital with waterborne diseases. These are things people would appreciate if you link it to a story. And that's why I mean, these are people who were chosen randomly from all the regions of our country to show how the social and economic infrastructural program that government is implementing is having an effect on the lives of the people. And so it's a commonly known, for those who've done communications and public relations, they know it's a very commonly used instrument to be able to demonstrate, actually what a reality is.
Okay.
And that is the kind of learning that is used in universities these days. You don't sit in the classroom and then your teacher just rams through lecture notes. You're required to go into the field and look at how the theories that you have learned apply in practical day life. And so evidence-based learning is the fashion in the world today. And so I just used it to demonstrate, what progress we're making in Ghana.